the backlash of this is going to push. It's not even about how it does it culturally, how it pushes things politically left through the framework of the Westminster system. Liberals have won the last two elections by winning 33% of the vote. If there is just a little bit of a shift and that center left block of voters that are not conservative grows just a little bit, it creates this cascading effect where it's like, okay, the conservatives might not win. And then it becomes that thing where it's in that moment right there where it becomes like, what have you done for me lately? And that's where progress comes, where you can dangle the carrot of public support over the heads of political figures. It never comes because they want to give concessions. It comes because they need to do and say. This is where stuff like a UBI or extended employment benefits or extended health care, all of that stuff comes from this. When a government that is going to lose if they don't do things, actual material things to get people to vote for them, that's where progress comes from. And that's the moment that we're in. And it wouldn't have happened if Trump wasn't in power. And so maybe it's cope, but I'm saying there's a lot of positive to take from this as far as like how it's going to affect the Canadian political dynamic, because I feel like so many political pundits, so many people doing polls, so many people commentating on politics in Canada, they look at it in the framework of the US, like left, right, two-party system. But like, we do not operate like that. We are a Westminster parliamentary system that has a one province that there has only been two times in history where a leader has won without also winning Quebec. Quebec is like all the swing states combined. So because of the way that it shakes out, you both need to appeal to Quebec. And like for the Conservatives, you have to win enough of the vote to hoard off a coalition being built around you. And there's never been more conditions for that to happen until right now, especially with Trudeau out of power. That's the thing, is that Quebec puts themselves in an amazingly perfect position because of the political dynamic of you need to win Quebec to win Canada. So it's that like, what are you going to give us? But that's the thing. If the Tories do badly in Quebec, this is my hilarious fantasy booking of what's going to happen. The Conservatives are going to win a small minority. The Bloc Québécois are going to be leaders of the opposition, and they are going to form a coalition around the Conservatives. But because Blanchet can't be prime minister, it's going to be Carney. So Carney is going to be like a de facto leader of a coalition that will include the Bloc Québécois, the Liberals, the NDP, and the Greens. And what's going to happen is that the far-right lunatics who voted for Poilievre are going to, because they don't understand the Westminster political system, they're going to have a complete freak out, and it's going to be like Convoy 2.0, and it's going to be like the Canadian insurrection attempt. And then that is going to like stain Poilievre. Poilievre is going to have to resign or get kicked out of the party. And then Doug Ford will be ushered in as the next leader of the Conservatives. And then they might be able to win. They need to appeal to the Conservatives in Canada, always need to appeal to like my dad, someone who votes Ford provincially, but is socially liberal. So in the things that affect him the least, he votes liberal the most. So federal stuff, he votes liberal. Provincial stuff, he votes conservative. That is the voting base that Poilievre will never get because he's such a far-right fucking loser. And that's the thing, like a lot of this depends on how Carney distances himself from Trudeau. All it needs to be is he needs to say that he is going to be willing to work with other parties. Because like, this is what happened in France. In France, they created a Popular Front party that into the election, they polled and saw who was leading in each place that could turn the election, and they pulled other party members. So they don't even need to actually form a coalition. They just need to do the strategic voting thing where they pull each candidate with the intention to say, if the Conservatives win a minority, we are going to form a coalition around him to make it so that they cannot form government. It's something that happens in Australia. It happens in so many different Westminster parliamentary systems. It just hasn't happened very much in Canada. But because of Trump causing this wild card situation, it's making it so that like it's similar to what's happened right now, because what's happened right now is the Liberals hold a small minority. So the Conservatives continuously kept voting motions of non-confidence. So that's what forced them to create the supply and confidence agreement with the NDP, because then that agreement made it so that the Conservatives can no longer keep making votes of confidence against the Liberal Party. Because of that supply and confidence agreement, they had enough votes. They now had a majority of votes to make it so that the Conservatives couldn't even do a motion of non-confidence. In like September, the NDP pulled that, and then you saw the NDP and the Bloc start saying, you're going to give us what we want or we're going to vote non-confidence. Literally the last day that Parliament was in session, the NDP voted with the Liberals once again. And as soon as Parliament was out of session and there was no way for the election to happen, Jagmeet Singh put out a statement saying that he will vote non-confidence. But he said that when Trudeau was in power. If Carney comes into power, that might change things, but let's just say that an election does happen. All that needs to happen is that the Conservatives don't win a majority, and then the Conservatives can win most seats. It is pretty likely, but they dropped like 20% in the past like 25 days. They were up massively. And now with the seat projections, it's saying they have a small chance at a majority. And like before Christmas, it was like a 99% chance at a majority. Now it's like a coin flip. But that's the thing, the fatal flaw that we keep doing when we're looking at this. Like if they are using the strategy that the Democrats used with Kamala to like pull the rug on the previous candidate, distance themselves from that candidate, push a new person to make it as though they lost without losing type thing. I said it when that happened. This would work in Canada easily, but it doesn't work in the US because it's a two-party system. But in Canada, you literally only need 33% to maintain in power. If you look at the last two popular votes, Trudeau only won 32 and 33% of the vote to maintain a small minority. You don't need 50%. You don't need a polarity. You just need small minority. And that's the thing, is that building up the demand of this anti-Trudeau sentiment and then pulling the plug on him at the last second to then replace him with this candidate at the very moment that this crazy reaction is happening with Trump against the Conservatives because of Trump coming in, it's going to hurt Poilievre just enough that it's going to make this margin that what I'm saying is going to happen is going to happen. And again, I'm not endorsing any of these fucking people. Obviously, I'm just commenting on the horse race aspect of it and the way that the political game shakes out. But yeah, that's what's going to happen. And it becomes even crazier because this is what I was saying. Usually it's the leader of the opposition who has the most seats who becomes prime minister when a coalition government is formed. But the thing is that with Blanchet and the Bloc, he can't be prime minister. It's not like, it's literally set up that he can't be prime minister, even if that happens. So Carney could literally become prime minister. I mean, he's going to be prime minister anyways if he wins the Liberal leadership, but he could become prime minister just by holding the Conservatives to less than a majority and then being able to be a part of a coalition that has the second most seats with the Bloc Québécois. And this entire insanity that I just said, this absurdity, is all totally baked into the reality of how our system works. It's not far-fetched at all. And because it's so complicated, people who don't follow politics the way that I just explained it are going to have a fucking freak out when this happens and storm the Parliament building. And then the Conservatives are going to be tarnished. And then what we will see is a new rebranding of Conservatives that will be that progressive Conservative, the restoration of classic Toryism in Canada, because Poilievre is not a Tory. He's a far-right freak. And then Poilievre will get ousted. Then we'll have Doug Ford, because that coalition is not going to hold together. It's going to be similar to what happened in France. It's going to be the type of thing that is prevented to keep a Le Pen type figure from taking power, like Poilievre. Then it will probably dissolve, and then we'll probably have another election. But at that time, the Conservatives will have rebranded to be a moderate conservative, classic Toryism. And then that's when we'll get Prime Minister Doug Ford. And I know that that's a mouthful, but like, I've thought about this a lot, and that's what's going to happen. I'm positive. And it's going to be hilarious because it's going to be like that classic Quebec majorité meme, except reality. It's going to happen. And it's going to be the most hilarious shit ever.